Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. I just watched the WWE Network Monday Night War episode on mistakes on the battlefield. This is a very good episode that followed along the career of Eric Bischoff. They showed some rare footage that we've never seen before of Eric Bischoff traveling from the AWA and going and doing a tryout for WWF back in the day. You can hear Vince McMahon in the background asking Eric Bischoff who his hero is, asking him to try and sell a broom. Eric Bischoff was going there and was trying to find a way to save a job because the AWA basically was closing down, and he could see the writing on the wall that he needed a new gig. Basically, Vince McMahon wouldn't hire him, but was smart enough to save this footage. It's pretty funny. This basic tryout for a C-lister announcer is saved inside of the vault of WWF Studios, WWE Studios, whatever you call it now. It's funny to think what else they really have down there. Just footage of Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon doing a trial. It blows my mind if they were able to find this in that vault. What else do they have going on down there? And basically, they use this as basically the fuel to the fire of Eric Bischoff, of why he was able to take the WCW and basically put WWE almost out of business in 1998. Basically, the 2-year run of WCW Nitro beating WWF War in the ratings. Basically, Bischoff would get a job being a C-level announcer inside of WCW, and would just keep plugging away at his ideas. And basically, once the job came up, he was able to move into there. This episode really played on the strengths of WCW and some of the best moves they made for about the first 30 minutes of it. And as they keep cranking it out up and up and up about what things are going good in WCW, I knew that they were just going to just basically pull the feet out from underneath them and bury the fuck out of them in the end, because when they go back and they do retrospects on what WCW was, very rarely do they ever really make WCW look very good. And from here they talk about Ric Flair being one of the bright spots of the NWA. He was their cornerstone, the guy that everybody knew if you followed along. And it got to the point where basically a new top dog was running WCW because people were being run in and run out, and they looked at Ric Flair as a guy who had been on top for a long time. They wanted him to cut his hair and put a diamond earring in his ring and call himself Spartacus and not be Ric Flair anymore and just be sort of a cartoon character. And Ric Flair wasn't going to go along with that, so he called up Vince McMahon and said, "Hey Vince, I want to come work for you." Vince would go over and sign Ric Flair. Ric Flair would come into the company. Everybody knows the big primetime wrestling debut that he had walking out on Vince's TV. If you watched any of this stuff, maybe pumping yourself for the Royal Rumble, you've watched the 1992 Rumble. Seeing Ric Flair in WWF, even at WrestleMania, still feels a little bit weird when you're watching that old 90s television. He just was so WCW. He basically was Mr. WCW, something that a lot of people give to Sting, because Sting is a guy who never left and never came to work for WWE until 2014. But everybody thought the reason he was there, definitely the reason that I thought he was going to be there, was for Hogan versus Flair at WrestleMania 8. One thing led to another, and ended up being the first time that WWF tried the gimmick of a double main event, putting up Sid Vicious against Hulk Hogan, and then putting Macho Man Randy Savage against Ric Flair. Both of those, the Ric Flair versus a Randy Savage match is more remembered more than anything else, but everybody sort of, tries to find the reason of why we never got to see Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan at at WrestleMania until both of these guys left. Hulk Hogan retired from wrestling. Ric Flair, because of the youth movement around WrestleMania 9, left the company and went back to go work for WCW. He said that basically his phone never stopped ringing with WCW offering offers, trying to bring him back and try to get him back. Once Ric Flair was brought back to WCW, it was sort of like Diamonds Are Forever, 10-time champion Ric Flair back into the fold. They tried to act like nothing had ever happened. And, they just kept on going. Ric Flair being back in WCW sort of gave them a legitimate champion, but it never really got them going. As Flair said, basically he looked around and things were worse than when he left, but at least he had a good place to work where he knew he was going to be on top. And he was actually the guy who told the people in charge that Eric Bischoff was the guy that had a good vision about where WCW needed to go, and was one of those guys that basically said hire Bischoff and put him in charge of the company, and that's what they did. From there, Bischoff asked Ric Flair if he can put him in contact with Hulk Hogan, and they flew out to the Thunder in Paradise set where Hulk Hogan was now doing a television career, and because Ric Flair was able to talk him into it, and basically because Hogan had missed a big portion of his life and he missed wrestling, he came back to WCW. From there, they immediately pumped out Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan for the first time at Bash at the Beach. This would be 1994, I believe, and they brought all the big guns, Shaquille O'Neal, Mr. T. They said there was 100,000 people inside of that Orlando arena out there on the beach seeing this show, because this was the first time that these two wrestling giants were going to get into the ring and do battle and see who was going to be the best. And Hogan was able to drop that leg drop, beat Ric Flair, and win the WCW Championship in his first shot. Some people would question that, why Ric Flair didn't cheat, even with Shaquille O'Neal or Mr. T at ringside, why Flair wasn't able to beat Hogan on that first time, making, the people coming back to see the Hogan title change would be at the second show. But it would just sort of be the story of Ric Flair, that he ended up being the guy that anytime somebody needed to get beat, he was the guy who got elected to do it, and just Bischoff started running him through the muck, almost for the same reason that he had to leave WCW to head and work for Vince. Was that people thought they had seen everything with him. Is the same thing Bischoff thought, that basically WCW was a Southern run promotion and they needed to get rid of all of that. So basically through bringing in the Macho Man and then bringing in Hall and Nash, turning Hulk Hogan heel, and starting up the NWO, and WCW really started growing and growing, and then from there they went on a 2-year run of taking over, taking over wrestling, and Vince, sort of re-upped and started doing things like the Attitude Era is starting to be a lot more like Howard Stern, and trying to push the limit to see how far they can go. And of course from there you got the birth of Stone Cold Steve Austin, taking them into WrestleMania 14, and then of course you had DX with Triple H and Shawn Michaels. And even though WWF was putting out better shows, it was taking them time to get the people to change the channel over from left to right. And from there they just talk about how Bischoff kept on making big mistakes around 1998. This next part of the episode was basically cut right out of last week's episode, talking about one of the biggest blunders that WCW made was issuing the Thunder show, which nobody wanted to work. And Kevin Nash basically said if you were booked onto Thunder and you were told you're going to be there, basically you showed up to the arena with a doctor's note saying that you hurt your knee or you hurt your elbow and you weren't going to be able to work, because basically Thunder was a television show that you didn't want to be on because of guaranteed contracts, and just basically you were able to say that you didn't want to work because you didn't have to. From here, they portrayed on... I thought they could have played this up a lot better, was Eric Bischoff signing Bret Hart and bringing him into WCW, even when WCW really didn't have a plan or just anything they were going to do with Bret. There was really no motivation except for, we're going to take Bret and we're going to sign him from Vince, and this is one of the things that's going to help put Vince out of business, is because he's not going to have one of the biggest stars he's ever had. And from there, of course, they would go out and try and shine Shawn Michaels and bring him into the fold, just trying to take chips at WWE, just trying to take out those guys and bring them over, thinking that people would be switching over the show just to see it. But once Bret debuted, he never really got going anywhere. He won the WCW Championship a few times. By the time he got it, though, it just was... it just didn't really mean anything. He comes in, he helps out Team WCW with helping Sting beat Hogan, and then right after that ends up joining Hogan in the NWO just to be Hogan's lackey, who just basically stood behind him or maybe came out with him during promos and things like that. And they made him wear the Hulk Hogan shirt, and he didn't just... it was all bad. This episode ends up finally ending with Hulk Hogan, not Hulk Hogan, I apologize, with Eric Bischoff being removed from power, and basically them portraying that next week's episode is going to be about Vince Russo. They don't actually say it, they don't actually put his picture on the screen, but they just talk about the next person moving into charge of WCW Nitro and hoping to see if maybe they can have a little bit of a change of pace on what's going down, which basically with WCW being run into the ground. Lots of talk about the Ric Flair Eric Bischoff feud. They showed clips of them actually having a match, which I remembered once I saw it, and I never want to see it again, but it was something that I honestly had forgotten all about. I actually went to a WCW Nitro in Atlanta, and it was Russo versus Ric Flair. This was held inside of a, basically, they didn't call it the Hell in a Cell, but it was a steel cage with a trap door on the ceiling, and they got up there with a ladder, and they ended up fighting on top of the Hell in a Cell. That was pretty cool and a pretty memorable WCW moment. But that's about it for this episode. Lots of rerun stuff as the Monday Night War episodes are coming to an end. They're still good, and you still learn some things and see some things you've never seen before, so I'm glad they're around. I just wish this was a longer documentary on a DVD, maybe a 2.5-hour, 3-hour documentary, instead of having, all of the rerun parts, or just clip them into actual story, and I think it would have been a lot better, and then on the end you add some matches and things like that, and it would have been fun. But this was definitely a good 1 hour spent, hanging out with Eric Bischoff and WCW, reliving those glory days. So, peace out, everybody. Enjoy this on the WWE Network, and we'll see you next time.